architecture, the art of science of building, especially the art of practice of designing and building edifices for human use, taking both aesthetic and practical factors into account. The term architect has been in existence for many centuries. However, architect as its own recognized profession is a relatively modern concept. The term and what it represents has evolved through history to its current form, in which architects are seen as highly qualified and educated professionals. Architecture also the power to inspire and delight. It can enhance everyday experiences. What is architecture all about? A wider definition often includes the design of total built environment from the macro level of town planning, urban design, and landscape architecture to the micro level of construction details and sometimes furniture. The term architecture is also used to the professional of providing architecture services. Architecture design is primarily driven from the holistically creative manipulation of mass, space, volume, texture, light, shadow, materials program, and realistic elements such as cost. Construction and technology. In order to achieve an end which is aesthetic, functional, often artistic. Distinguishes architecture from engineering design, which is usually driven primarily by the creative application of mathematical and scientific principles. Origins of architecture. It is often assumed that architecture as a professional dates back to the ancient Greeks, the Egyptians or the Romans, and although the origins of the word date back to these times. It wasn't until much later that the architect became a recognized profession in its own right. Vitruvius Scorio is often considered as the first recognizable architect, known as a great Roman writer, engineer, and builder. However, Vitruvius wasn't strictly an architect and did not conform to our perceptions of architects today. Origins of the professional in Europe. The modern-day term architect dates back the mid-16th century from the French architecture and Italian architetto, originating from the Greek architect, where archi means chef and thick builder. Architects first began to develop as a distinct discipline in Italy during the Renaissance period. Until this time, the practice of architecture, as we understand it today, was not a recognized profession, and unlike the painter or sculptor, the designer or builders did not have a clearly defined place within the trades. There was no standard training for those wishing to engage in architecture. There was no guild devoted especially to the professional interests of architects, and the men who made the plans for churches and palaces were ranked alongside humble artisans. Architects' practice varied enormously in the 16th century, but it's clear that architects such as Palladio and Alesi has a larger number of commissions than their predecessors. Neither Palladio nor Alesi was attached to a court or to great patrons, and they were not obliged to supervise construction, although they often did. The word architect first appeared in the English Oxford Dictionary in 1563. One of the first Englishmen to call himself architect was John Shute. In his 1563 publication, The First and Chief Grounded of Architectures, Schute's origins are unknown, but it seems to have trained as a painter and was sent to Italy in 1550 by his employer, the Duke of Northumberland. Modern conventions. In contrast to the diverse and varied entry route to the profession in Britain and much of Europe during the 18th and 19th centuries, the entry route to become a practicing architect in modern times has become fairly consistent. Most of Europe and the USA regulate architectural practice through governing bodies which, as well as settings, standards, and codes of conduct, also set the curriculum to be taught in schools of architecture.
There are different types of architects. First is residential architect. Residential buildings have come to be semi-identical after the standardization that followed in the Industrial Revolution in in the past century. However, some neighborhoods still enjoy the merits of beautifully customized residence, and these were residential architects' work. They dial with a client who would like to have their own customized houses designed. They take note of the spatial and functional requirements. They start to design the plans, layout, and elevation. They estimate the cost of the materials and services as well as the time needed to complete the construction and finishing. Second is the commercial architect. A well-designed building is aesthetically pleasing as well as functional. And the functionality varies according to the type of space that is being designed. A successful design of commercial or public building is highly dependent on the flowing and self-guiding circulation that optimizes the experience for the building user. For example, a well-designed shopping mall lets the buyer find their way and get what they need easily, without getting lost or walking more than they should. Commercial architects are supposed to make that happen. They specialize in non-residential building, and his specialization requires engineering, construction, and architect skills. It also requires full awareness of building codes, safety regulation, and construction codes. Third is the interior design. Designing and styling the interior of an apartment, an office, or a restaurant requires artistic sense and technical knowledge. Interior designers have a deep knowledge of material, fabrics, color, and basic of the furniture design. Some architects prefer to work on the large scale and not to get involved with such detail, while others, like the pioneer Frank Lloyd Wright, prefer to do the interior design for their own project. Fourth is green design architect. With the recent changes in the climate and the remarkable decline in non-renewable energy resources, the role of the green design architects has become essential. Green design architects are responsible for making eco-friendly and energy-efficient architectural design. They continuously working or innovating effective green design methods that lead in minimal impact on the environment. Landscape architects are also choose the materials for the walkways and the types of trees and shrubs for the green areas. And so they need to have a background in the science of urban horticulture. They should be aware of the suitable materials and plants for different climates and uses. Six is urban designer. Urban designer is a broad subject that employs other specialization like building architecture, landscape design, and green design. It deals with the skills of neighborhoods, districts, and cities. Urban designers are in charge of grouping buildings, designing nodes, paths, and street networks. So they give the city shape and sense of order. They can design cities from scratch or develop existing ones. Urban designers additionally face a wider range of issues that have to do with the economy, politics, and culture. They also have to be in touch with the communities they serve who are their actual clients. Seventh is the industrial architect. The architecture of an industrial facility can be vital to its functionality. They need a suitable envelope that aids of the follow of the industrial process taking place inside, and that is what industrial architects specialize in. They fully understand the different industrial processes and accordingly design efficient and functional buildings that can hold them.
Of the Philippines reflects the country's complex cultural identity. First colonized by Spain, then Japan, and finally America. Filipinos joke that they spent 400 years in a convent, 5 in a prison camp, and 45 in Hollywood. This complexity finds its creative expression in the work of these 6 post-war architects, whose vision simultaneously captured the country's history while looking towards the region's future. There are famous architects in the Philippines. First is Leandro Locsin. Was in some ways a quintessential Renaissance man, a brilliant architect, interior designer, artist, and classically trained pianist. Locsin was also a keen art collector, amassing a sizable collection of fine Chinese art and ceramics during his lifetime. It is for his buildings, however, that he is remembered. From airport terminals to memorial chapels, art centers to stock exchange structures, Locsin left his mark on the urban landscape of the Philippines. Locsin was determined to reconfigure Western architectural mores for a Filipino audience. His most substantial contribution to Filipino architecture is the Cultural Center of the Philippines, a collection of 5 buildings that demonstrate the architect's drive to find a vernacular form of modernist architecture. The National Theatre building within the complex is a good example of Locsin's trademark style, known as floating volume. It consists of a 2-floor high block of travertine marble cantilevered 12 feet into the air. The theater harks back to traditional Filipino dwelling hats but on a monumentally modern scale. Is Ildefonso P. Santos, the father of Filipino landscape architecture. Ildefonso P. Santos, or I.P. Santos as he was known, created some of the best loved urban space in the Philippines. Landscape architecture, which deals with parks, plazas, and green spaces, was a little considered element of urban planning in the first half of the 20th century. However, Santos changed that, carrying out pioneering work that, after 4 decades in the profession, led him to become National Artist for Architecture in 2006. One of his earliest successful projects was the Makati Commercial Center, an outdoor shopping mall in which the shop fronts and walkways were interspersed with garden trails, fountains, and public artworks. This led him to be commissioned to revitalize Manila's Paco Park, the work for which he is perhaps best cemetery and Japanese. A former Spanish cemetery and Japanese ammunition store, the park was transformed into a national park in 1966. Between 1967 and 1969, Santos revived the park's grounds and incorporated the original park structures, including memorial sites and fortification walls, into a space for urban recreation. The third architect of the Philippines is Pablo Antonio, one of the first exponents of modernist architecture in the Philippines. Pablo Antonio is revered as a pioneer and the foremost architect of his time. This success was perhaps unexpected for a boy who was orphaned at 12 and who dropped out of his first architecture program. It was during his studies at the University of London that Antonio began to shine, completing a 5-year program in only 3 years. He went on to revolutionize popular architecture in the Philippines, eschewing the fashionable neoclassical style for his own version of Art Deco. Antonio was acutely aware of the demands made on architecture by the unforgiving Philippine climate. Buildings such as the Galaxy Theater, the Far Eastern University, and the Manila Polo Club display practical innovations such as national ventilation systems and sunscreens, all of which are rendered in Antonio's signature style. Clean lines, strong shapes, and simplicity. As Antonio's son Pablo Jr. explains, and I quote, "For our father, every line must have a meaning, a purpose. For him, function comes first before elegance and form." The fourth architect of the Philippines is Juan Nakpil, the son of veterans of the Philippine Revolution. Juan Nakpil was committed to the belief that architecture built in the Philippines should reflect its culture and people. In his early career, Nakpil spent time studying in the United States and France, absorbing the lessons of international architecture. When he returned to Manila in the mid-1920s, Nakpil applied his newfound knowledge to Filipino structures.
Top 5 famous international architecture. First, Anthony Gaudi. Anthony Gaudi spent his entire career in Barcelona, where he built all his projects. In 1883, cathedral known as La Sagrada Familia. Gaudi's work would go to have an impact subsequent generation of modernists. Second, Frank Lloyd Wright, a Wisconsin native revolutionist in 20th century architect, and his Midwestern upbringing played a crucial role in shaping his sensibility, inspired by the low-lying building that dot the American plains. Third, Mies van der Rohe, famously holding the number position that last as well. German architect, but strict architect to the elemental geometric forms, pointing the way to the minimalism. Eros Aires. During the post-war era, the bold straight-line philosophy evolved into the international style, the go-to east, for new business-led quarter and the government office moving around the world. In essence, the modernist ideal of simplicity became a form of corporate conformity, and it is against this backdrop that Eros Aires' mid-century design served as a welcome corrections. Fifth, Frank Gehry. This West Coast architect and arguably the most famous in the world right now, thanks to his 1997 design for the Jurgen Glen branch in Bilbao, Spain. The building is also credited with reviving the furnitures of its host city, the largest in the Basque Country.
Peace.